All right, we are recording. All right, thank you, Marcy, for coming on tonight. And let's go ahead and get started. First, let's talk about some administrative items from week one. So, first of all, notice in your announcements, um, that I do post due dates occasionally. I will not always post that. Keep in mind, first week I want you guys to get used to all homework is due on Thursday nights by 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Many people miss that this first week, so make sure you're paying attention to that. Quizzes are always due Sunday by 11:59 Central. So homework Thursday night, quizzes Sunday night. Okay. On your homework, another point to point out is that I'd like to see your homework in one Excel spreadsheet. Don't send me 3 or 4 spreadsheets. Send me one. I file these things, I keep them so that, we have, we can show that you completed your homework. And it's easier to file one. It's also easier to grade one. So please just send it, and I'm going to show you kind of what I'm looking for in terms of formatting, because that seemed to be an issue as well. So, like for this week's, just put P3-1A, oops, 3. And then you're going to come down and do down here, P3-3A. Okay, so you would just scroll them down the sheet. Okay, make sure you number them, scroll them down the sheet. I don't want multiple sheets across the bottom because this again makes it difficult to grade. Okay, I prefer to just scroll down a sheet, put all your stuff here for problem 1 and then come down here and put all your stuff in here for problem 3, and that's all I'm asking. Is that pretty clear? Marcy, you with me still?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just muted myself.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
I'm
Um,
still here, and then as I go to unmute there's like a delay whenever I go to unmute myself. So
oh, gotcha. No worries. No worries. Yeah. So, basically, those are the only 2 things that I saw. Again, if you are having any issues, like during the week, if there's an emergency or something like that, please let me know, either ahead of time or as quickly as you can. One thing that, I don't know if you guys realize, if your other professors had talked to you about this or not, but when we don't get homework assignments or we don't get quizzes turned in on time, you know, typically we're supposed to report that via the early alert system. So if, for some reason I'm not getting your work and you're not responding to my requests for your homework, because I do typically try to send out an email saying, hey, I didn't get this, please send it to me. Please send me a response. Let me know what's going on. I'm always happy to work with people with legitimate emergencies. I know, obviously if you just didn't do it and turn it in on time or you forgot, that's not legitimate. Um, I mean, I understand everybody's life is busy. Mine is especially busy. So, just keep in mind, I also make time on the weekends to go through and grade your papers and different things like that. So getting things in on time is imperative for you and for your success in this. We also have a very tight schedule. We're going to be we're now in week 2. Week 4 is your midterm. So you don't want to fall behind because it gets very difficult to catch up. The more assignments that you miss, some of these are worth some pretty good points. I mean, your homework is 25 points apiece. So it does make a difference, right? So Missing a homework assignment may not seem like a lot, but when you miss 2 or 3 or 4, it will drop you a letter grade, in the class. So don't do it. It's also going to highly impact your success in being able to work these problems, which I promise you, the midterm and the final are a majority problems. Um, so you will have to work the problems. You will have to understand how to work them. So, I want everybody in there practicing and doing this homework. If you don't, it's very hard for you to be successful in this class. Okay. All right. Any other questions administratively, processes or anything, Marcy, that you saw in the first week that maybe you were confused by? Questions from week 1? Anything?
Um, well, what was the balancing of like the general journal entries.
Uh huh.
I had a difficult time with the work. Like I'm looking at the solution from the homework.
Okay.
Solution to P2-3A.
Dash 3A? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. All right. So this is the one you're talking about?
Yeah, just in general of
What you were
so
supposed to
it's
do?
all in, yeah, just in general what we're supposed to do because I know like the question had it one way. So it's just got a balance, like debit and credit for each date has to have the balance, correct?
Yes. So each one of these has to, equal itself out. So like the work in process inventory is 10, the manufacturing overhead was 2. That is going to credit out to wages payable when you're recording the incurrence of the factory payroll. So this is payroll, basically, factory payroll. Okay. So basically, think of it like, um, your wages payable or your salaries payable, whatever they might want to call it in a particular problem, is always going to be your total, and then you're going to split that out between overhead and inventory. So this is what work in process is what we call WIP. Okay, so WIP and overhead,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
you're going to balance those two out. Then on this one, when you're talking about recording the delivered cost of materials that were purchased on account, so anytime you see the words purchased on account, that's always going to be accounts payable. Okay? So if it's purchased on account,
Okay.
that's accounts payable, always. Okay? If it was purchased with cash, then that's going to go to cash or to the bank account or checking account or something like that. That's not purchased on account. Purchased on account is when somebody gives you credit, extends credit to you, right? So
Yeah.
this is delivered cost of materials. So this is your materials order inventory. This might be a
Mhm.
purchase order or something like that that you purchased on account. So those are the offsets between those two. Okay.
Okay. So like even though on like the date was the March 8th one, so because it only gave the one number which was the 14,000 for the materials and components, you always do there's always a debit and a credit for every single date.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
You're gonna
that's
have
that's where I had my confusion on whenever I turned in my homework, and then once I got it, I was like, oh,
that makes
well,
sense.
like the light bulb went off after the fact.
On journal entries, you're always going to have a debit and a credit. Okay. And keep in mind your total journal entry. So when you get down to the bottom of a journal entry, you should balance out to 0. So each side should equal out to the same amount. Okay.
Mhm.
So your net journal entry is really zero. Your net effect is really zero. That's what journal entries do. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why each one of these, you can see like this one has a total of 5 here, 5 over here. Yeah, you've got 2 lines here, but 1 here, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's the key to all of this is just figuring out which side you need to debit, which side you need to credit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Good question.
That was really my only. I mean, as far as that went, that's the only question I had.
Okay.
Um, what was the other question I had? Oh,
This needs to be made bigger.
the 2-4B only. I did it as a T account.
Okay.
It said use a T account. So was it like,
Well, it's not letting me make it any
so
bigger.
were we supposed to do it as a journal entry like that, or an actual,
If it said
like,
do it as a
where
T,
it shaped like a T?
if it said do it like a T account, I would have done it like a T account. I'm not sure why the solution has said, do it as a journal entry. Let me take a look and
Mm-hmm.
see what the book
Because it
says.
says record the transactions listed above in a journal entry form, post relevant portions in to the 4T accounts and balance the 4T accounts. So that's, I mean, that's what I did was I did
Uh-huh.
the process where I went back in the chapter and I followed the T account and did it. And then whenever the homework got posted, it was completely different. It was just the journal entry. And again, I guess,
Oh, that's because it said B only
hmm
journal. In general journal form, post relevant portions to the 4T accounts and balance the 4T account. Yeah, I can see where that's confusing. When it says though in general journal form, it's meaning a journal entry. So yeah,
okay.
I can see where you would have been confused by that. That's pretty bad wording. So
That's where, like, in my notes, in my notebook, like, I did it kind of like a journal entry.
yeah.
And then what I submitted was T accounts based off of one exhibit 210 on page 32.
Yeah. 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 So I would have probably done this way, but then I probably would have gone ahead and broken it out like the T accounts as well. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. So I won't count off if you didn't do T accounts. I won't count off if you did. Either way, I'm gonna accept.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on P-2?
I think I'm good.
Cool. All right. Well, I know I didn't receive any other questions from anybody else, so we will go ahead and move on to chapter 3 then. All right. So today we are looking at chapter 3, and this is really all about job order costing. Okay. Um, and basically, that's just walking you through how to cost out an entire job order. So, what's a job order? Basically, you get and this is the flow of documentation in a job costing system. Okay, you get your sales order, so you make a sale, right? And then you have your production order or in bill of materials. So the production order is going to be like a purchase order to get the the materials that you need to produce whatever was ordered in this sales order, and the bill of materials help with that. Okay, so then you've got your materials requisition, your time record. So this is your job order cost sheet. This is once the manufacturing basically begins. Okay, so you got your materials requisition, your time record, and your manufacturing overhead application rates. Okay, so that's the documentation when it comes to job order costing. Okay, for a manufacturer. So This kind of shows you what your bill of materials looks like. Okay, and it's basically just a listing of your items, the description, how many of these you needed to make this, the cost of each, right? And an extension of the cost. So basically it's taking this 2 times this 350 to give you your 700. Okay, so that's what a bill of materials looks like. It's really pretty basic. It's just your listing of everything that went into that particular job. Okay, so don't let it scare you with the terminology. The bill of materials is literally exactly what it sounds like. It's a bill of all of the materials that you had to order for that job. Okay. Here's how you account for that, for those materials. So this is like the journal entry that you had done before. You've got your materials inventory um, and your accounts payable if you paid for it on account. Okay. Then you've also got your work in process inventory in your manufacturing overhead. Okay. So this is $30 of indirect materials like lubricants, bars, pl- um, bar end plugs, things like that. All of the stuff that's basically just manufacturing overhead, indirect materials. Okay. So your total for that then is the total of these two, and you're basically looking at your materials inventory. So the book does a really nice job of walking you down through this and showing you what each form looks like and how you get your materials requisition forms, things of that nature. So I highly encourage you guys to go through and look at these charts, interpret them, take a look at, like, this is what my time record may look like. So I look at the time that an employee stopped, started, the total time that they spent, their hourly rate, what department they're in, what the job number was, and what the total cost for that job number was. All of this stuff becomes important because you'll have an employee that may work on 5 different jobs throughout the week or the month or however often you're looking at this. So this is truly applicable in like a manufacturing setting. And believe me, one of the most in-demand jobs out there is somebody that can do cost accounting. So cost accountants are very well paid. Their positions are very stable as long as they're good and they know how to do this stuff, because there's a lot of details to track. Systems will typically do it for you, but I'm actually working with a client right now that I'm implementing their system, uh, which is full-fledged manufacturing. They manufacture bathtubs and showers and sell them to like apartment complexes and hotels and things like that. That's what they do. So we're going through all of this and we're setting up their bill of materials and we're setting up, all of these time records and different things like that. So it's all extremely relevant and important that this really does happen in the accounting world today. And I can tell you their controller is amazing. She knows her stuff inside and out. So, going on, we've got your entries for recording and distributing labor. So you've got your materials inventory, you've got your wages payable, your work in process inventory, and your manufacturing overhead. Okay. Work in process, again, is just the stuff that you're working on right now, that you're manufacturing or you're making. Okay. So this is how you account for manufacturing overhead, right? You guys can read down through that. These entries for recording and distributing overhead are important. You're going to have to do that in some of your problems. And so you need to understand how your work in process inventory is accounted for each job and how you come to those numbers. Okay. So you have to be able to figure out job costs. And this is your job cost sheet. Okay. You have to be able to figure these numbers out. Okay. So we're going to walk through some scenarios in this, and we're going to kind of walk through your homework together and show you just kind of how this works. Okay. I'm not going to give you the numbers, but I do want to walk you through it. So if we go into P3-1A, okay, determining and use overhead rate. Okay, so these are the expenses that you're given. So you've got your direct labor at $9 an hour for $162,000. Okay, so if we divided those two out, what will you be getting, Marcy? This is the bad part of being the only one on.
So I
Yeah.
divide out which two?
The direct labor and the total direct labor. So this is the total direct labor. This is the hourly rate. What do you think you get when you divide those two out? How about the hours? The total direct labor hours.
You
So
get
you've
divided by 9.
that's
You
what you,
get 18.
18,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
18,000 hours. Okay. So you're going to get your hours that way. Then you have to, in order to get your predetermined overhead rate, which is what you're being asked for in A, you have to take
Mhm.
your total manufacturing overhead. Okay. So you take your total manufacturing overhead,
Yeah.
which you're going to take your total manufacturing overhead expected, which is this number, okay, and you're going to
Yeah.
divide it by the number of hours, okay, and that's going to give you your per direct labor hour. You have to figure that out because it comes in, which that's what this is. That's what this is asking for, okay.
Yeah.
You have to figure that out because what you're figuring out in B and C requires it. Okay, so in B, you're asked to prepare a journal entry, right, to figure
Yeah.
this out. So um, in order to figure the two that you need your work in process and you need your overhead. So to apply the overhead rate of 8, well, the number that you figured out above, I just gave it to you. You're going to take that direct labor hour that you figured in A, and you're going to
Yeah.
multiply it by this 1,500 hours that you're getting. Okay? And that's going to give you what you should have in your journal entry for work in process and overhead. So you're going to debit one, credit the other. Okay?
Okay.
Then on C, you're going to take the total direct labor and divide it by the rate per direct labor hour. So again, you're going to come in and you're going to say, okay, you had $180 in direct labor, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it gives you that right here. And then you're going to divide that by the amount that you get. In just a minute. The amount that you're getting for, which is $9 an hour. Okay, which is this at your direct labor hour. So you take that
Mhm.
180 and you're going to divide it by this $9, and that's going to give you your um, part of your answer here. Okay, so
Which one?
it's going to give you the total hours that you need to calculate the next part. So when you get that, you take those hours and you're going to multiply it by that number that you got in B for the dollar amount per direct labor hour. Okay? So when you
Okay.
get that, that's your answer to C. Okay?
Okay.
So that's kind of, accounting is going to be very much, you have to get answer A to get answer B to get answer C. And
Yeah.
each one of these problems is basically walking you down through that process. So you have to pay attention to the overall process, because some problems that you work, especially on the test, may not say compute this, prepare this. You may have to remember, oh yes, I have to go back and do this in order to get the problems right. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important to go through these problems and make sure you understand how to do them. Then in P-3-3A, this one's pretty long. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is very similar to what you had done before. You're going to prepare that journal entry, okay, and record all of these transactions. All right, so that's the first thing that you do, is to prepare that journal entry. Then you're going to get down to B, and you're going to calculate based on this information right here. You're going to calculate your work in process inventory, your finished goods inventory, your cost of goods sold, which is what you have to transfer underapply overhead. Okay, so in order to do that, you've got to find your actual overhead by getting your indirect material, indirect labor, and your other. Okay, and then take your applied overhead, which is basically taking this 6,000 plus this 4,000 plus this 45,000. Okay, so that's giving you your applied overhead, and subtract that out of your total actual overhead. Okay, and that's going to give you the answer to your under applied overhead. Okay, and then from there, you can calculate based on the $6,000 here divided by your applied overhead times your underapplied overhead is going to give you your work in process inventory. Then you're going to take this number, the finished goods, divided by your applied overhead times your underapplied overhead, and that's going to give you your finished goods inventory. And then you take, for the last one, your cost of goods. To get your cost of goods sold, you're going to take the 45,000 divided by your applied overhead and multiplied by your underapplied overhead, and that gives you your cost of goods sold. So that gives you literally your entry at that point. And then you're offsetting that to manufacturing overhead. Okay?
Okay.
So that's pretty much all you have to do for the week. It's pretty straightforward week with not too many problems involved. Then just make sure that you're doing your quiz and getting that turned in on time, and you should be good.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't. I looked over the homework, but I didn't want to start it until we had this tonight, so that I kind of got an idea of how to do it properly.
Right. It's pretty straightforward. If you follow the book will show you, different ways of achieving all of what you're looking at. So you just have to find, like let me look at this comprehensive problem. Yeah. So like looking at a comprehensive problem is a good idea. Looking down through all of these problems is a really good idea. Anytime, one of the things that a lot of my students overlook is looking at these exhibits, because these exhibits walk you through step by step how to calculate a lot of these problems. Okay, and they give you the step by step, as you can see. You can also
Mhm.
see that they tell you exactly, what you're calculating and why, right? So
Yeah.
that's huge. Also, make sure you're looking at the PowerPoints because the PowerPoints go through and walk you through, with the voiceover. And the voiceover is important too because the voiceover will actually talk you through things. Okay, so make sure you're watching that as well. So, and then of course, I'm always here if you guys need me for anything. Okay.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said, I'm always here if you guys need me for anything. If anything comes up that you don't understand or anything like that. So this really shows you a lot of what the book is showing you. It's also walking you through similar exercises. So these are your practice problems, right? I know one of the
Yeah.
questions that came up before was, how do I know what I'm supposed to do? Well, the problems that are in the PowerPoint, you don't have to turn in to me because the answers are right here and it walks you through how to calculate these. So like for instance, some of these that are in here, some of these problems that are in here are literally the exact same problem that you're going to have to work in your homework. So like this E3-3A. This is very similar to what you're going to have to do in your homework. Okay. So basically, this will walk you through and show you how to, um, calculate this stuff. Okay.
I went through the first, I think, 3 modules, and now I'm printed off all the PowerPoint, so I have it in black and white right in front of me to write notes on it.
Right. Exactly. That's a good idea. Very good idea. All right. So let me know if you have any questions. Okay. I'm here to help you guys, and just make sure 11:59 Thursday night I have your homework.
And sent to the correct
Email
email.
address. Yes, please do not reply to the announcement emails. They do not come to me. They go off into cyberspace. So make sure you're sending all of your homework to lrbates@mckendree.edu. And I will definitely get it and get it graded. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty. Well, let me know if you need anything else. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys next Tuesday.
See you later.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye
Bye.
bye.